I got it. There. Okay. So we're officially recording. If I haven't met you, my name is Kate Kirkwood. I'm the program manager for the Sullivan County Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes Program. I was in the last grant and I am again in this grant. So very excited to be working with the county again. I'm going to turn it over to Sharon to get us started.
Well, welcome to the Sullivan County Lead Abatement and Healthy Homes Program. I'm Sharon, and I work at the Sullivan County Government offices in Newport, New Hampshire. The county commissioners and the county manager, they're located here, and Derek Ferlin is the county manager, and he's also the program director for this program. What I do, most of my work is behind the scenes. It's processing invoices, and Derek wasn't able to be here, but I jumped on to just kind of explain what I do, which is Kate will receive contractor invoices and send those on to us once they get approved. I'll push them through and we try to get the payments out as within a week of receiving those invoices. And then at the end of the month, I usually tally up all the expenses and report to HUD, federal government, to actually get reimbursement for the expenses. So we pay it out first and then we get it all back. But yeah, we're excited to be on the program here. We had a $1.7 million grant the first time around, and now it's doubled. It's more than doubled. It's 4 million this time. And we're excited to get that out to
Uh-oh,
the
did she
contractors
freeze?
and what's that?
I didn't, somebody froze. I don't know if it was me or you.
Oh, sorry.
No,
We're
that's
excited to
totally
get
fine.
that out and start abating and doing healthy homes program work in the community. So I'm gonna just kind of send this over to Kate. She's the expert in the whole program, so I'll let you do your thing.
Thanks. Thank you so much. I do have a presentation, but just before I do, just to get a sense of who's in the room. So Tiffany, can you just wave and say hi? Tiffany works for me.
Hello, everyone.
She will be helping out with paperwork and answering questions and so forth. So you may very well see her name back and forth on emails. It's Mary, who typically does the intake with the tenants and the property owners. But Tiffany she's sort of a general assistant for me. So she jumps in wherever she's needed. So you may see both of them. And Nick Norman is actually a
Howdy.
landlord. Go ahead. You want to introduce yourself?
So my name is Nick Norman. I'm one of the trainers at Lead-EDU. So I do training for both the RRP classes and part of the lead abatement worker and lead abatement supervisor training, plus some other trainings.
Yep.
I'm a landlord, been a landlord for 30 plus years, totally living the life.
You've got some landlords in the room. They can appreciate the irony of that.
That's why I said it. So, I'm very experienced with landlord issues. In fact, so I have 48 units. They're all here in New Hampshire, in southern New Hampshire. And for any of you that are involved in anything related to landlording and lead work, please feel free to give me a call. I'll give you my phone number.
Yeah, go
My
ahead.
phone number is 603-432 5549. Again, it's 603-432 5549. These grants have come through many different iterations over the years. Um, I'm not sure how long they've been in existence. Kate might give you some history on that, but I can tell you that I did a voluntary use of one of these grant programs quite a long time ago. It might have been around 2007 or something like that.
That would be about
So
right.
I'm familiar with the way that they work. And although some of the provisions have changed over the years, the basic ideas of it have seemed to be quite similar from grant to grant. The other thing I'd let you know is for about 14 years, I've been very involved in legislative work here in New Hampshire, and I have a team of people that follow every piece of new legislation that comes through Concord related to real estate and particularly landlord-tenant law. I put out a legislative update advising people of all the changes, how to weigh in and protect property owner rights and advocate for housing providers. That readership goes out to about 3,500 across the state every week. And when we're in legislative season, we're about to start. Because of my legislative work, I've served on 2 lead commissions that rewrote the laws for the state of New Hampshire. I also served on a task force of stakeholders rewriting the rules for lead in the state of New Hampshire. And then, of course, I teach the lead courses. So I'm plugged in. I can't help it.
Thanks, Nick.
And
Oh, go ahead. Sorry. Didn't mean to
so,
cut you off.
yeah, that's okay. If you have a question, please feel free to reach out to me. I'm here to assist housing providers in particular, and of course, assist with the entire lead issue in general. Thanks.
Thanks, Nick. So, Nick is here both as a landlord and as a member of our team. Although he doesn't actually work with the Sullivan County Grant Program, he does work with Lead-EDU, which is the training providing company. So he knows the laws probably better than anybody in the state, maybe except for me. So we do work a lot together, and I encourage you to reach out to him. His phone number's in the chat. Tiffany put it in the chat for you. So hopefully
Perfect.
that will help. Okay. So I know Erica, you're a landlord. Sonia, you're a landlord. I should say housing provider. I'm learning new terms. Housing provider. And Lenia, did I say your name right?
It's pronounced Lane.
Lane?
My
Okay.
mother's maiden name was Lane, and she added an
Oh, okay. Thank you for that correction. So Lena, is this the property that you just bought the only one that you own, or do you have others?
No, I have 2 others. I have one with 3 apartments behind where I used to live, and then I had an office and that had residential upstairs. And then when I close the office, it's a duplex. So I have 5 other units, and there'll be 3 in this building. Well, actually, they're all rented at the moment besides me.
Great. Great. And Tori, I don't know if you can hear us, if you want to introduce yourself.
Hey, y'all.
Hi.
I'm Tori from Resilient Buildings Group. So we work a lot with the residential programs for NHSaves. So happy to help facilitate any rebates or help get people enrolled in these programs. So thanks for letting me join.
Absolutely. You work with Dana?
I do. Yep.
Great, great. Well, say hello for us.
I
Dana,
will.
longtime advocate and colleague.
I have a question. When she says rebates, does that include some of which I have not spent any time sorting out yet, some of those energy efficiency rebates, which appear to be available to landlords?
I think that is what she means. Tori, do you want to speak?
Yes. Yep. Yeah. So we can help property managers and single family homeowners. So primarily what we're doing is working on behalf of the NHSaves programs, and we do work on or under all 4 utilities. So depending on where people are located, we're happy to kind of help see if your home or property can be enrolled, and then follow up with an energy audit, and then rebates or incentives to get the home insulated. So wall insulation, attic, basement, air sealing, and some other measures too.
Great. So she's going to be a good person for you to know. Do you want to give us contact information, Tori?
Sure, I'll put it in the chat.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You're very welcome. So let me jump into my presentation here. So as I told you, I am the program manager, was also the program manager for the last grant. And so I want to talk a little bit about what we did with the last grant, and then swing into what we are hoping to do with the new one that we just got awarded. So as everybody can see, a sort of blue screen now that says Sullivan County Lead Hazard Control and Healthy Homes Program. Give me a thumbs up or nod. Yep.
Yes.
Super. Thank you so much. So This is an overview. We have property owners obviously in the room, single family, multifamily. Derek Furland was not able to join us, as Sharon explained, but he is the project director, Sullivan County manager. I will give you contact information for all these people at the end. Sharon, who you already met, is here. I don't think we have any regulatory folks with us today. They're undoubtedly going to listen to, they were with us this morning. They're undoubtedly going to listen. If they don't pop in, they may pop in on us, but they will certainly listen to the recording. So I see John Nelson coming in, another landlord, sorry, housing provider, and also a contractor with our program. So and then me. My name is Kate, and I'm the program manager. So I wanted to just say a little bit about my background, because sometimes people are like, what do you do as a program manager? So I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a small business owner. I was a college business professor for 30 years. So I kind of focus on business. So I understand. I was also a landlord for a while, not anymore. But I do understand the financial aspects of what you're dealing with and how devastating this can be. Right. So there's a bunch of other stuff I do, and you can see the list here. And I'm also a grant writer, and I wrote this grant. So that's what qualifies.
Okay, I'm muted.
Talk about it. You are not muted, but we will mute you. So there you go. It's okay, John. Hi, how are you? So anyway, so just information, and this is all of the various things that I'm involved in really boils down to lead. It's all about lead. It's all about how we can make these properties safe, how we can keep the kids safe. And these programs, when they work, are just phenomenal. Because what the problem with lead is the health effects, right? So if you have children, young children, grandchildren of your own, or you have tenants' children, these are the kinds of things that we see. We see permanent brain damage, reduced IQ, learning disabilities, the problems that these kids face at this stage, at the toddler stage, when their brains are in development and when lead is introduced, that affects them for the rest of their lives. It means that they will not be able to function to their full potential later in life. So the things that we see that have been very carefully tracked now over many decades are the things that you see on the screen here, that they won't make as much money as an adult, that we have increased special education costs in the communities where the kids are lead poisoned, that we see violent behavior, that we see medical expenses that we often can't afford, very significant things. I'm working with a family currently who has a child, I think he's 15 this year, 15 or 16, but he's been for years now on the kidney transplant list because of kidney damage as a toddler from lead poisoning. So the situation gets really dire when you start to work with these families. And we get, people joke about lead. Oh, parents still letting their kids chew on those windowsills. And I used to eat lead paint chips when I was a kid. When we teach these classes, we hear it all, right? But the truth of the matter is it's a serious problem. And as soon as you start to work with a few of the families who are facing this, whoops, I don't know why that happened, who are facing this problem, you begin to understand how serious it really is and how just heartbreaking these problems are. And I got involved, as I told the group this morning, I got involved right after a 2-year-old girl died of lead poisoning in the city of Manchester. And her name was Sunday Abeck. And actually, if you're interested in that story, if you go to YouTube and you search Forensic Files, the crime drama, you search Forensic Files, there is an episode called Sunday's Wake. Sunday, like the day of the week, Wake, W-A-K-E. And it tells the story of this little girl. And from the time they determined that she was lead poisoned until the time she died was 11 days. So this can be really just horrific. And this is what was happening when I first got into the industry. This had just happened in Manchester. The city of Manchester had a small grant. They were having trouble getting landlords and homeowners to come on board and do the work because there was no incentive for them really to do it, and lots of reasons not to, right? Why would I let inspectors into my home to look for lead? Particularly if I'm a housing provider and I've got tenants, and maybe they'll find other things, right? Maybe I have a 5-unit building, and while they're in there, they'll find that my I don't know, heating system's not up to code, that I don't have the right electrical system, that I don't have smokes and COs where I should have them, that my doors are not fire rated, and maybe there'll be all kinds of fines and difficulty around that. So property owners, single family as well as multi, were not anxious to let us in to look for lead. That wasn't an easy sell in the beginning. Now, as we begin to get more data around this and we begin to understand the terrible problems that these children have, we start to see a lot more attention to the situation. And also, as time goes by, more evidence is shown, more research is done, and we do a better job of solving the problems. We get more people to the table. We have organizations like Nick was just describing, where landlords get together and they acknowledge the problem and figure out things to do about it, right? And we have conversation between the legislation and the property owners, the legislators and the property owners. So what are we doing with this program, and how does this all tie together? We got $4 million, as Sharon told you, $4 million to make homes safer in Sullivan County. And I just want to talk for just a quick minute what we did with our last grant, where we only had less than half of this. So we estimated at that time that we would clear, what that means, we would inspect 60 units. And then COVID hit. Right after we got started, COVID came along. And so it really was crazy then. Everything was shutting down. You may remember contractors were not coming out to do work, but we managed to keep going. We had a really resilient group. And we did, in spite of COVID, we cleared 66 units, or 69, depending on how you count. Not all of them were done with HUD money, which is why there's that discrepancy. We did have some match money, and we did some units without using the HUD funds because they didn't qualify for HUD. Like we want to help this family, but they didn't quite meet the income requirements, which I will go over with you in a minute. So what we did included 59 rental units and 7 owner occupied units. We have to inspect these units before we can do any work. So we were scheduled to inspect 70, and we actually inspected 85. We were also able to provide funding or match to do other units. As I said, we did some additional units that we couldn't count with HUD, but the program also funded them. So 46 families were living in units that we assisted. 46 families. That just makes me proud, that this little program, first time out, in spite of COVID, could do that. So 46 families, an additional 20 families were moved into units that were vacant when we took them over. They were not habitable when we first started with them, but we were able to, largely actually due to the work of Erica and David Luberman. So chat with them if you want to learn about how that works. They would take units on that were not habitable. They had to do some of the work themselves, because with HUD, we have to make them habitable before we can really accept them even into the program. But we worked together and we made it work. So we either they did have tenants in it that would qualify, or we were able to put tenants in them afterwards. And there's another landlord on the call. I think if John is still here, I can't see everybody anymore, but that same thing happened. That property didn't have tenants in it at the time, but after the work was done, we were able to get qualifying tenants in it. So we actually improved the housing stock in the community. We also helped 46 children under 6. The program impacted, I should say, 46 children under 6, 3 women who were pregnant, and another 33 children over 6, but under 17. There's some controversy in the lead world. Some people believe that the damage only occurs up to age 6. But many people believe that the brain is still in development until age 18. And so sometimes we look at both sets of numbers. How much to age 6, how many to age 18. Some of us who have raised teenagers think the brain's not really developed until about 30. I don't know about you, but it's kind of my thinking. Anyway, so we worked really closely with New Hampshire Housing Finance Authority, who is a HUD grantee of their own, but also they provide 0 interest deferred loans to the rest of us. So if we didn't have enough money in our grant program, we were able to offer these homeowners, property owners, $11,000 per unit to add into the grant funds. And it wasn't a grant, but it was a 0 interest deferred loan. So no interest, and you don't have to pay it until the property is sold. So it's completely deferred for the time of the family living there. We also worked with Habitat for Humanity, who provided some funding for 3 of our families. We got tax credits from banks that provided match funding that allowed us to increase the capacity. We had some ARPA funds. These funds all together, these partners all together, provided almost $700,000 on top of what we had to work with. So we actually showed, by HUD's calculation, a 500% match. We were only required to pay a 10% match. So we did a really good job for a first-time grantee. We're really proud of that. We also did 196 outreach events in total, most of them over Zoom, for parents, for property owners, for contractors, for caregivers, for realtors, and for the general public. We have brochures, flyers, newsletters, social media campaigns, radio and TV. We used match funds to host contractor lunches. We would get together with the contractors and say, what can we do better? Derek would come to the lunches and talk with the contractors. That's unheard of in this world, in the grant world, really. I've never seen that happen before. And our contractors really appreciated it and let us know that they did by continuing to come back. In a time period when many grantees honestly shut down because they couldn't get any contractors to come, we never failed to get our required 3 bids on a project the whole time. Sometimes we had as many as 8. So we really had a lot of contractors for such a small community. So we're very excited about that, and want you to know that we're really proud of our contractor base. We train them well and we work really closely with them. So we did a lot of, with the match funds, we did a lot of other things too. We did toy testing events. We partnered with DHHS to hold free toy giveaways, outreach events at schools and community fairs. We attended back to school events. We had 115 training sessions during the 3 years where we trained RRP, lead abatement, contractors, and lead dust sampling. So a lot of the classes that Nick was just talking about to improve our workforce capacity. Basically, the county, with a population of about 43,000, has 2,424 children under the age of 6 at last count. So it's a really important, piece of our population, and we continue to work really hard because just helping a few dozen of them doesn't make a dent, really. There's 2,400 of them out there. So we also know in our new grant that now that we've got some background, we know what we're planning to do moving forward. We're planning to inspect 120 homes at a minimum. Probably there'll be more. We also have some healthy homes we can do in addition to lead. More about that in a minute. But we will also do actual abatement in at least 100 homes. Again, probably more, but we don't know for sure till the applications come in and we see how big the projects are. And also how much other funding there is that we can pair up so to make our lead money go further. We'll train 30 contractors or so in the area in lead abatement. We'll improve the property values, we'll create jobs, and we'll keep everyone safe from lead poisoning to the best that we can, right? We also know, because HUD has done a lot of research on this, that these programs return to the community between $17 and $221 for every dollar spent. And this is in things like jobs, in improved housing stock, in rental units that were not habitable before, but now are. And in the value of the property when you go to sell it. So it's a really useful program for property owners. So we need 2 things. We need contractors. We talked to them this morning. We need a lot of contractors who want to do this work. We also need property owners who want to have the work done on their property. And you think it's a no-brainer. Why wouldn't you want to have work done? It's free money, but it's not that easy. There are a lot of regulations. It's a federal program. They're going to make us jump through some hoops, as some of you can attest to, having filled out these applications and been through this. But we're here to help you. We have a program in place. That's what Tiffany and I do, and Mary and the other folks on our team. Our goal is to keep it as easy for you as we can. We are actually looking to hire an outreach and education person. Part of that person's job will be to help you fill out applications, because they really are sort of cumbersome, and we'll talk about why. So let's talk about healthy homes for a minute first. What does healthy homes mean? All this stuff that you see on your screen. It could be anything from mold to mice to there's not enough light here. I'm afraid I might fall on these stairs when I come home at night, to there's ice on my deck. Can we put an awning or a gutter over this door? Those kinds of things. Electricity, we want to make sure your electric is up to code. We want to make sure that your fire and CO detectors, carbon monoxide detectors are up to code. This year, we are required for every property that we do to do radon testing. And if the levels are too high, to do the mitigation, to put in a radon mitigation system. That's new with this grant. So we can talk really about everything. We may not have money enough to do everything, but we can look at everything. We'll do, in addition to our lead inspection, we'll do a healthy homes assessment. And that is basically a healthy homes inspection. The same inspector, by the way, I don't know if some of you may know the situation. Our lead inspector, risk assessor, Mickey Lasky, has decided to retire, that we had in the last grant. And we have just hired, as of yesterday, actually two new risk assessors, lead inspectors. It will be Doug and Ariana Jones. So I've known them for 30 years. They're great people, hardworking, very knowledgeable. Doug has been a contractor for a long time. He's also been a landlord for a long time. And so he, I think, is going to be a really good addition. He and his wife, Ariana, really good addition to the team in terms of helping us to get you exactly what you need. They can speak the language of landlords and contractors and hopefully translate between the two in a way that we really need sometimes. So those issues have to be prioritized, right? There isn't enough, in some cases, there isn't enough money to do all of these things. So we'll prioritize them and we'll see how far we can get. HUD gives us a cap. We can only spend a certain amount on healthy homes. So we're looking for other funding. I was just this afternoon in between our two sessions, chatting with folks about the CDBG, the Community Development Block Grant funding, to see whether we can get that into our mix here. So we have some more rehab funding to take care of some of these issues that are, very real for you. So how does it work? If you're a single, in addition to lead, you can do all of those kinds of things, right? But we have to put an application together to see what the need is and how we're going to go about it. So I'm going to talk first about a single family home, owner occupied. We do these projects. It's a difficult process in some ways because the single family homes are the most expensive, right? You don't share the cost between, HUD gives us money per unit, and a unit is a house or an apartment. So a 6-bedroom house is a unit and a 1-bedroom apartment is a unit. But we know those are not the same when it comes to cost, right? So we have to look at how we distribute the funding so that we don't do only single family homes and we don't do only big multis. We have to have a mix of the two. So we'll be looking for that. We'll be looking for ways to mix those two together. So if you're a single family home, you fill out your application. It's 19 pages currently, lots of attachments. Send us your tax bill, send us your water and sewer bill if you're on public water, making sure that you are, you've met all of your requirements. The city can't loan you money if you owe the city money, right? So if you haven't paid Claremont taxes, or fees or water bill, then we have to clear that up before we can give you money because it goes through the county, which ultimately goes through the city, right? So we have to prove that you own the house. That's the first thing. You have to show us a tax bill or a deed to prove that you own the house. And then if there's a mortgage, that it's current, or if not, that you're making your payments as agreed. You have a payment plan and you're keeping up with it. Have to make sure, again, property taxes, utility bills, that sort of thing, that the home is insured. That's another thing that we need. And then we ask for a 10% owner's match. So if we put the project out to bid and it's going to cost $20,000, we would pay $18,000 and you would pay $2,000. All right. So that's what we ask for. We ask for a 10% owner's match. All the programs are like that. That's how we get our share. One of the ways we get our share of the money to give to HUD. We have to provide at least a 10% match to HUD. So we ask you if a property owner, if you can do it. And most property owners do, because especially if they're, they have multiple properties, for them to have somebody else cover 90% and all they have to cover is 10%, that's a pretty good deal, right? But if you're a single family homeowner, that might be different. If I say to you, oh, this project is going to be $50,000, and you say, well, I don't have $5,000. One of the things Sullivan County has done from the very beginning is they said to me, we never want to turn away a property owner because they don't have the match. And they never have. We've never done that. So we've always been able to figure out the match a different way. We can use New Hampshire housing money, or we can use tax credit money, or we can figure it out. You do have to, document for us that that it's a need, that you need it. But if so, we can waive that 10%. So keep that in mind, that don't let anybody not apply because they say, oh, I don't have 10%. First of all, you don't know what 10% is until we put it out to bid. And secondly, even if you don't, we may be able to help with that. All right. Also, we're supposed to only do properties with kids under 6 in them. So that's something we're asking in the application. Are there any kids under 6 that live here? Also, we're allowed to count them if they visit. They don't have to visit a lot, but they do have to visit a few hours a week. So if you've got somebody that visits like 6 hours a week, that's great. We're going to count them as if they live there. So maybe you babysit, maybe you have a grandchild that comes that often. Maybe it's a divorce situation, but the child is with you on weekends, whatever. If we can document 6 hours a week, then we can consider it as if that child lived there. And if there are no children that live there under 6, they don't visit, we can still do a certain percentage of them. And it's about talking, have a conversation with us. If there's a woman of childbearing age there who could potentially get pregnant, sometimes we can count that. If there's a situation where, the family doesn't currently have children, but they might later, or it might be that the apartment is suitable for children and this family's thinking they're not going to stay that much longer. Maybe the next tenant will have children. So there are ways that we can work with that, and we take every case on a case-by-case basis and we talk about it. You do have to income qualify. There's a chart in the application. You don't have to be low income, but you do have to be what we call 80% AMI or less. Now, I'm only talking owner occupied right now. This doesn't apply to the landlords who don't live in the units for right now. We'll talk about you in a minute. But only the people who live there, right? 80% AMI or less. And there's a chart, and the chart is based on family size. So last time I looked, I think one person had to be under 59,000, something like that. A family of 4 had to be under 70 something thousand. I don't remember, but you can look at the chart. It's in the application. It changes every April. So it will change again in a few months. And that's based on the cost of living. It's HUD comes up with these numbers and we have them for a year. So assuming that you income qualify, then we can move forward. And you can get up to $28,000 for lead. And when I say you can get, I mean, we can pay the contractors on your behalf. No money ever goes to you. No money goes to the landlord. No money goes to the tenant. We sign a contract, and the contract is between you, the homeowner, and a contractor, and we pay the bills, right? But the money, we don't just give you $28,000. That's not how it works. So you can get the grant money is 28 lead, 5 for healthy homes right now. Then this 0 interest loan that I was talking about, that can actually go up to $100,000 on a single family owner occupied home. So we actually had this happen in our last grant. We had a family that had a couple of lead poisoned children in the house. They owned the home. It was given to them by their parents, the children's grandparents had given them the home. The young couple were living in their childhood home. One of them, I think it was his childhood home, and he was going to raise his children there. And so they had a couple of kids. They started doing some work on the property, and immediately the children were lead poisoned. There was no mortgage on the property. There was a lot of work that needed to be done. That's why they were trying to do it, right? The house needed major rehab. And it was going to cost, I forget, I want to say $80,000, which is a lot. And they didn't have it. And they said, there's no way. And they I don't remember, the income qualification may not have been good either. They may have been just over the income to qualify for the grant. But the loan program has a higher income threshold. You can make more money and still qualify for the loan. So they did. So they got, I don't remember, say 80,000 from this loan program, which is now a mortgage on their home, right? It's recorded at the Registry of Deeds, but there is no payment. There is no bank. The actual holder of the mortgage is New Hampshire Housing, who doesn't need to get paid, doesn't ask to get paid. They just hold the mortgage. And someday when that house is sold, that $80,000 will be paid back. But if that's 20 years from now, it doesn't accrue any interest in the meantime. If they borrowed 80, it will still be 80 20 years from now. So I asked the dad in this scenario, I said, so are you going to pay that down? And, because they did so much work. The house was beautiful when we were done. So you're going to pay that down over the years and then give your kids this house with no mortgage on it? And he said, no, I'm going to give it to them and let them decide what to do with it. I borrowed it for them. You can do it however you want. The truth is that it stays attached to the deed, but New Hampshire Housing is not a bank. They're not trying to make money. They're not trying to get that money back. They're happy to subordinate to any other financing you might want to do later to do additional work on the property, or for whatever reason. They will take second. I've even seen them take third place in against other mortgagees. So there's no mortgage holders. So there's no downside really in taking that money if that's the way you want to go. It will probably, I don't know if it would even show up on your credit report. I don't know how that part works. So that's a good thing to talk to your bank or your accountant about. So we work with you to get all this funding put in place, and then we do an inspection, we develop a work scope, and we hire and pay the contractors. That's how that works. Sharon does the paying part. Now, if you're a landlord and you have multifamily, I'm gonna give you a chance to ask questions in a minute. So keep your questions if you have some. Let's say you have a multifamily, right? You're not the owner, the occupant. You are now the property owner, but other people live in the units. You fill out an application as a property owner, and you have your tenants fill out an application. As a property owner, we don't care anything about your income. We don't ask you. We don't ask you about your income or your credit score. We don't care. It's not about you. HUD wants to know who's living in the unit. So it's only if you live in the unit that we ask you for your income. Otherwise, we don't ask. All right. The truth is, most of our investor properties would not, the property owners would not qualify, right? They would be above the income threshold. We don't care. It's not about them. We're helping the families who live in the units. So we ask those families to provide their income. Now that's very confusing for them. Some of you know we've been through this with tenants and say, why do I have to give you my income? I don't own the building. So we have to have that conversation because HUD wants to know, who are we helping? We want to make sure that we're doing something for the people who need it. So we don't care if you're a tenant. We don't care about your credit score. We don't even really care about how much you make, except we can't be over that 80% AMI, which is a moderate income. It's not real low, but it's, it's on the charts. You can look at it. The application is currently on the Sullivan County website. So you can go look at the tenant application and the owner application, and these charts, these income charts are there now. You may be looking at the last year's application, but it doesn't matter. We update those charts every year, and we will get the 2024 application up soon, but the income charts and basically all the information on that application will be the same. We're making very minor changes. So you also, if you're the landlord, you are responsible for getting your tenant to fill out their application. We can't help you if you don't get that information from them. Now, we will help you. We will go talk to the tenants if you like. I've sat at many kitchen tables and filled out these forms with the tenants because it's hard. It's a lot. It's overwhelming especially if you're trying to take care of a little one and you're tired and you've been working all day, and then somebody puts 19 pages in front of you and says, here you go. So I just sit there and fill it out for them, and we get everything filled out, and then they sign it. So we can do that kind of thing for them. Once we get the tenant information and we determine that they qualify, then we're ready to go. You are agreeing, when you sign your owner application as a landlord, you're agreeing to a 3-year compliance period. That means whatever work we do in the house, can't undo it for at least 3 years. So if we cover that wall with sheetrock because it's a leaded wall, you can't take that sheetrock down, not for 3 years. All right. So don't undo the work. We also ask that you don't sell the house. We're not in the business of helping people flip properties. That's really not. I know some of our investors do that, but that's not what we're about, right? That's not our job. So we don't want to give you money, have you turn around and resell that property for twice what you paid for it. You could do that, but not with our money, not with HUD money, right? So we ask that you hold the property for 3 years. So for landlords who want to buy and hold, at least for a little while, this can be a great investment because you can use our money, use HUD money to buy it, to fix it, whatever. Well, not actually to buy it, but to fix it. And then you can buy some of these properties. Once there's a lead order on them, the value of the property tanks, as some of you will know. So you can buy these properties cheaply, use a HUD grant to fix them up. That's fine. There's no problem with that. You just can't then turn around and sell it. You have to hold it for at least 3 years. Now, life happens, right? Sometimes you're not going to hold it for 3 years. Something happens to your health maybe, or you have to move, or whatever, things happen. Then you reach out to us and we will help you. Certainly I've worked with property owners who have sold within that 3-year compliance period, and HUD writes in the contract that they can take the money back. And that's true, they can, but I've never seen them do it. What we work out typically is the remainder of the compliance period. If there's 1 year left in your compliance period, you write a condition in your purchase and sale. When you sell the house to the new owner, you pass along that 1 year compliance period to them. So they can't tear down any of the work that you've done. They also can't raise the rent. See this section right here? Don't raise the rent. You have to keep the rent within 3% of when we first sign the application, you tell us what the rent is, and you can't raise it more than 3% within that 3-year compliance period. So in other words, we don't want you to then use our money to fix up the property, and then the rent would be higher, the property's worth more, so you evict those tenants that we were trying to help. That's not okay. So we don't allow you to raise the rent more than 3% within the 3-year compliance period. After that, you can do whatever you want. Also, if the unit should become vacant during that 3 years, we ask that you market it to low, moderate income families with children. You don't have to accept them necessarily. I mean, if they don't meet your standard, whatever your standard is for rental, credit score, or, whatever it is, income, whatever, they have to meet the standard that you set. But you can't ask them, you can't make it a whole different environment. In other words, you can't ignore them. You can't say, I'm sorry, I don't rent to kids anymore because the apartment's really nice now. We fixed it all up. Right. That's not fair. So if we come in and we do this work, you must show that you're making an effort to rent to low, moderate income families with children. Typically, we say things like advertise it on Facebook, so that we know that the general population could see it, that you're not just renting it to college students. So, well, that wouldn't be a very good idea either, would it? You're not renting it to senior citizens, maybe, who wouldn't, damage it the way a family with toddlers might. So anyway, those are our rules. And it's just for the 3 years. So we inspect, we develop the work scope, we hire the contractors, we pay the bills, and Paul Shalafor, who is not with us today, but I'm happy to give you his number. He's the person over at New Hampshire Housing who controls their loan program, and we can give you extra money from that. And if you qualify for our program, you automatically qualify for theirs, and we do all the paperwork. You just have to sign an extra document, which is a loan document with New Hampshire Housing. But if you want to hear that directly from them, I'm happy to put you in touch with them. Okay, property owners under order. Some of you know what this means. If a child was poisoned already in one of your rental units and the state has ordered you to abate, we call that under order. All right. There's a lot of laws that have changed in recent years. So many more properties have gone under order. Anytime the child goes to the doctor's office because of Senate Bill 247, they are supposed to be tested at age 1 and age 2 at their regular well child visits. So if a child goes to the doctor, you know, there's nothing unusual going on. They get a blood test. It's a finger stick. It's a little quick test, they call it, capillary test. We get results in 3 minutes. And if the child's level is over a certain amount, the lab, the person in the doctor's office who took that sample, will then require you to do a venous draw, which is a regular blood test. They'll send that out. And if that also comes back high, then the property is put what we call under order. And the law changes back and forth. Sometimes you can be put under order from just the capillary test. Sometimes you have a venous draw. But either way, if your child has a high lead level, you are forced to abate. Now, for tenants, for property renters, that doesn't really mean anything, right? Except that the property is going to be made safer for their kids. But for landlords, that's a game changer. You know, you're just doing your thing and, you know, collecting your rent and doing basic maintenance, and you don't really think about this. And then one day a child comes back from the doctor with a high lead level and the whole world changes. Now you have an order on your property and you no longer can do anything yourself that disturbs paint. Right? You can't scrape and paint. You can't change windows. You can't put in new flooring. You can't do anything because you're not a lead abatement contractor. And the state will tell you only lead abatement contractors can do work on a property once it's under order. So many of the properties that we do are under order properties. Your first phone call should probably be to us if you find yourself in that situation. We do this all the time. And they'll give you, typically when the state comes in to do these investigations, they'll give you our contact information and send you to us. So we're testing more kids all the time. We're up to about 35% in 2003, actually more than that in Sullivan County. We're doing pretty well at getting the 1-year-olds and 2-year-olds tested. We don't get all the kids, but we get those too. So if the kid's level is too high, now what's too high? Gosh, when I started in this business, it was 20 micrograms per deciliter. And then it dropped to 10, and then it dropped to 7.5, and then it dropped to 5. And now it's going to 3. So we just continually lower that threshold because we learn more all the time about the dangers of lead and what it can do to you. So as a landlord, what's happening? We're testing every kid at age 1 and age 2, and the threshold we're considering poison is going down. Your liability just went up, right? I mean, the likelihood that you're going to have a child that meets those criteria, that gets tested and has a high level, and that is, 1 or 2 years old, that the likelihood, because of the automatic testing, the likelihood of that is gone up every year. So your landlord's stress levels go up, right, when they begin to realize this. And you can't not rent to families with children under 6. That's housing discrimination. You'll get sued for that. Fair housing laws will get you as soon as your as soon as your tenant picks up a phone and calls the right lawyer. You all know how this goes. So you can't not rent to them. And yet, if you do rent to them, you run the risk of having one of them have a high level. So what do you do? Well, talk to Nick. but separate from that, you keep everything painted. Honestly, that's what I tell people. Just get out the latex paint. Do not let there be any deteriorated paint in that house anywhere. That's a really good first start. But then if you can work with one of these grant programs and get something more permanent done, get a permanent abatement, because the work that we do is permanent, then you can actually, breathe easy, right? You can actually relax a little bit. The lead inspection alone. So if the state did put you under order, the first thing they would do is tell you to go get a lead inspection. The lead inspection alone will be between $2,000 and $2,500 per unit. The abatement these days averages $25,000 per unit. So if you have a 3-unit building, how many of you have an extra $100,000 hanging around that you didn't know what you were doing with this week? I mean, that's really how this goes. So these programs can really help you to navigate through all of this. We can pay for this. We can keep you in business and keep the kids in your units safe. Now, we do properties whether they're under order or not. We don't care. I know there are some programs that will give you more if you're under order because they feel like it's a more dire situation. We want to reward you for being proactive. We will give you the same amount of money, the maximum that we can, if you're doing full abatement, whether the property is under order or it's not. So let us get in there and help you take care of your properties before they go under order, right? Let's keep everybody safe and keep you from having to pay these fines. Now, if you're a tenant, we don't have any tenants on this call right today, but I'll go through this real quickly. the landlord's going to ask them to fill out an application. It's only 14 pages. You detail who lives in the house, how much money they make, not just an estimate. You got to give us paycheck stubs or tax returns. And this is the place where a lot of tenants sometimes balk. Someone asked me earlier today, where does this money, this information go? So I give you my paycheck stubs. What are you going to do with it? And often tenants will ask me that. And the first thing I tell them is I don't have to share it with the landlord. We don't have to share it with the landlord. So don't ask us to. That's a breach of confidentiality, right? If the tenant tells us what they make, that goes in our files. We'll let you know if they're over income. If they don't qualify and we can't do the work, we'll let you know. But assuming that they do qualify and we can get the work done, we are not going to, we're not going to share that information with you. They can if they want to, but we're not going to do that. So the income, and sometimes also, I'll be honest with you, tenants are afraid. They'll say things to me like, I'm afraid if my landlord knows how much I make, they'll raise my rent. And sometimes that's really sad because they really make a small amount of money, but it's big to them. It's more than it was last week or last month or whatever it is. So it's a hard balance to walk sometimes, worrying about what's the landlord going to do? Are they going to throw me out? So it's not just if I can't pay, but it's if I can pay, are they going to want me to pay more? So there's all those conversations that happen. Children under 6, we are asked them to always have a blood test. Sometimes they say no, that's all right, but they have to sign a form saying I choose not to have a blood test. So they have to do some paperwork. They have to give us their income so we can prove they qualify. And they have to trust that we're not going to share it with anyone. And then they have to let us either test their kid or sign a form saying, I don't want you to test my kid. Either way. Then for the healthy homes piece, we ask them to tell us about the house. Were you cold last winter? Do you have mice, bed bugs? And sometimes they don't want to tell on their landlord. They don't want to say, yeah, I do actually. But if we know that these things exist, we can fix it. We can go in and do that work. So that's a little bit of an awkward conversation for everybody, for the landlords and for the tenants. But we ask them, and if they choose not to fill out the form, that's fine. But we can't fix a problem we don't know about. We have to know about the problem so that we can help. And then once we've done the inspection, and our inspectors are good, they know where to look, right? They're not only looking for lead, they're looking for healthy homes issues too. Radon, mold, asthma triggers, that kind of stuff. So what they find, they'll let us know. And then the tenant will be told where the hazards are, and they'll be moved out of the building while work is going on. We always ask the tenants if they have people they can stay with. If they have friends or family, honestly, that's how everybody is happier. That's the best thing. But if they don't have friends or family that they can stay with, then we do ask the landlord, the housing provider, to help us. Can you find a place for these people to stay? Do you have any empty units? That sort of thing. If you don't, then we do have some money that we can spend for what we call relocation, and we can put people in hotels. Obviously, we can't do that with every person. We would run out of money. So we try our other options first. But if we need to, we can put them in hotels, and we will, because they can't be there while the work is being done. It's not safe. So we go over with them all the areas of the house where they can leave things and where they can't. They might have to move all the furniture to one room so we can work on the other room. I don't know. It depends on the job, but we will help them figure that out. We do ask the landlord if the tenant doesn't cooperate and they don't move everything, then we ask the landlord to be responsible for that, because you're the one, after all, who's getting the benefit of the work. So you might have to hire somebody to come and help us move some furniture or something, but we'll work together and we'll get it done. Your house then will have a permanent 20-year abatement certificate, a lead safe certificate, when we're done. If we left any lead there, if we put sheetrock over a lead wall, not only will it be labeled behind the sheetrock, so if anybody pulls that sheetrock off, it will say lead hazard, but also we will tell you, it will be in the final report that we leave you, hey, be careful, don't pull that sheetrock off because there is lead behind it. Investors, and I'm almost done here. If you're an investor, where else are you going to get zero interest money? This is a pretty sweet program for investors. Like I said, I'm an MBA. I have Excel spreadsheets for everything. I get the money piece, right? And sometimes I'll have that conversation with a property owner. They'll say, oh, I want to buy this building, but gosh, it needs so much work. And I'll say, well, we have this program. And we can not only give you the loan money, the grant money, but you can get 11,000 a unit in loan money at no interest. Where else are you going to get that? So this is really gold for investors, these programs, and that's why these programs work, because they build new housing, because investors see the benefit. Wow, we can use some of your money, pool it with my money, make my money go further. So it's a, there's grants, there's deferred loans. We'll crunch the numbers and I'll help you do that. I have worked out Excel spreadsheets with people before they bought a house to say, what's this going to look like? Also though, sometimes it won't work. Sometimes we don't have enough money. It doesn't matter. It's not worth it. Sometimes it's better. You're better off just selling it. And so, or whatever, disposing of it, whatever you do. Sometimes they're just, it just doesn't work. And so we have to look at the numbers. We have to actually look at the numbers. So we can help you with that. We want landlords to be happy with this program. We want you to get your properties fixed up, make a little money if that's if that works out for you. We don't want you to be running around saying that program cost me money or that program hurt me in some way. So we're going to do our best to make this work for the investors and for the landlords. And we're not a bank. We can't fix everything, but sometimes we can just provide enough, that it makes a big difference. So don't be afraid of it. Get educated. Also, if you can do your own work, we have free training and free certifications. So we can help you get certified to do the work. You are going to have to pay the state certification fees, but the training provider will bill the grant program. So you have to pay. You should go sign up with whatever training provider you want. Obviously, many of you know, we have a training company. Lead-EDU is our company, but we're not the only ones in the state. You can take your classes with any training provider that you want to. Give us back the receipt for what you paid and the certificate to show that you completed the class. And then we'll have a form for you to fill out. And Sullivan County will reimburse you as long as you live or work in Sullivan County. If you live or work in Nashua, they will reimburse you. The New Hampshire housing I'm waiting to see, but I think they're going to do the same thing statewide. So most of the state, you can get this training and certification for free. I'm not sure about Manchester. They're in the middle of their grant, so they're kind of stuck in the system they already have. The rest of us are all setting up new systems, so we're all working together. So what we call lead abatement, you would mostly call rehab. It's these kinds of things, right? Replacing windows, baseboard trim, floors, yada, yada. So what is lead abatement? It's removing or covering the lead. And the lead is typically in these places. Okay. So what's the catch? Well, I already told you, there's the relocation part. We have to move that person out. They can't be there. So we're going to ask you to help with that as a property owner. You can't do the work yourself. We're not going to just give you $11,000 or $28,000 and say, here you go, have fun. If you are a contractor, you can bid, but you have to bid just like everybody else. And you might win the work on your own property or you might not. Okay. You have to be okay with that. Many times, lead abatement contractors who are property owners do win the bids on their own properties because they bid low, because they don't have to account for their own labor, because they're doing work on their own property. They're not paying another person. It really depends on your situation. But many times they do. And sometimes when they don't win the bid, they work with the person that did. Like, can you hire me as a supervisor to do the work? We don't care. As long as a lead abatement contractor is in charge, that's all that we care about, right? We want to know that the rules are being followed correctly. And of course, our risk assessor will be in and out. I will be in and out checking on the property. So we're making sure that you do everything correctly, and you won't get a clearance certificate at the end if you don't. So we're making sure that that we work with you, that the steps are followed correctly. No promises that you're going to get to, if you bid on your own work, no promises you're going to get to do it. But we try to facilitate that if we can. You must be a lead abatement contractor. RRP is good, but it's not enough. To work with this program, you have to have the full abatement. So RRP is a 1-day class. Abatement is a 3-day class for workers, 4 days for supervisors. So you need the full 3-4-day class. You also need the RRP, but that's not enough by itself. Okay. Also, there's another catch, which is you have to disclose Once we do a lead report on your property, now you know where the lead is. If you choose to do nothing and walk away, you're required by law to tell anyone who wants to buy or rent that property where the lead is, because you know where it is, right? You have to say what you know. So now you know. And you know, and it's public that you know, because a lead inspector did a lead report and gave it to you, and the lead report is on file with us. So you can get into a lot of trouble, pay a lot of fines. I actually know of a realtor who was arrested. I don't know, last I heard, she was sentenced to a year in jail. I don't know if she's going to serve the jail time or not, but because she knew there was lead and she didn't disclose it to the client. So you must disclose. That's an important piece. You have to tell tenants or potential buyers where that lead is once you know where it is. And also you have to be aware that we're not remodeling. We are making it safe. It may be nicer. It's certainly going to be cleaner, but it will definitely be safer, but it won't always look better. And I'll give you an example. If we have beautiful ornate crown molding around this house and it's dripping with lead, you know, our choices are we scrape it and paint it, we rip it out and throw it away. And so often the less expensive choice would be to rip it out and throw it away. We don't really want to do that. We like the character of that, but sometimes that's the choice. And so then we would say to you, that's what we're going to do. If you want us to do something different, you're going to have to pay the extra. Right? So we can't waste the federal money on something that is really just appearance. So that's a tricky balance. And so I'm just telling you the downside. This whole slide is about the downside, right? Why would I not want to do this? Maybe you really love that crown molding and maybe we can't afford to keep it. Okay. When this program works, it works for everybody. Contractors get work, communities improve their tax base, we create safe, affordable housing. You get help maintaining and improving your properties. Single family homeowners, I mean, you just heard that $100,000. I mean, you know, it's a lifesaver for some of these families. Tenants get a safer place to live. Kids get to stay safe and keep their IQ points. And all of us gain from that. And those kids are picking out my nursing home, you know, just saying. All right, questions. I'm happy to take questions now. Sharon is here. This is my contact information, and Sharon's and Derek's and Mary, who's many of you know, who does a lot of the intake for our program. So take a picture of this screen if you like. Go ahead.
Also, I added into the chat messages for this Zoom the actual link to the Sullivan County website, lead abatement and healthy homes program page. So you can copy that right out and get into the page right now and check it out.
I know we ran a little over 5, but I would be happy to take questions if anybody has any.
I have a couple of questions. I read the statute, which was the state statute, which seemed to imply that owners can do some work there on their own but it had to meet a standard. Is that the RRP or what is that?
You have to get permission from the state. So if you're under order, you have a grant officer who's working with you. And it's whoever that is, you ask them. It depends on the work. Many times RRP is enough. Yeah, but it does depend on what the work is that you want to do. So they'll often give property owners approval to do a certain level of work. Like you could encapsulate, maybe you could cover it with encapsulant paint, but they might not want you scraping and sanding until you take a class. So
right. So my question specifically is, I have an old house. It's in a historic district. I'm not sure that I'm allowed to mess particularly with the exterior and take away, you know, the little doodads that are there.
Yeah,
does that have
that's probably
any
true.
effect on choices?
Yeah,
the choices that are made, like, oh, there's a way to do it, but if it's not allowed, so to speak, does that factor into to allow them to, you know, I think they would just be encapsulating outside anyway.
yeah.
Inside, what I would prefer to do would be to do it myself and to use peel away, which I don't know if I've ever discussed with any. I try to talk about it with everybody. Does anybody know peel away?
Yeah.
Have you guys dealt
We're
with
very
that?
familiar with it. Yeah. It really depends.
Because that seems to be,
It's a chemical stripper. There are
Mhm.
lots of them out there. It depends on the situation. Usually they're allowed. But you have to ask, once you're under order, you have to ask your grant officer, your DHHS officer before you can do really anything as a property owner. But if you took the class, if you were a lead abatement contractor, you absolutely could use peel away.
and it
I'd
wouldn't
like
matter.
to add to that.
Yeah.
I didn't know until I started studying lead that when you remove all the lead paint on the wood,
Mhm.
there's lead in the wood.
It stays there, yeah.
It's been leached into the wood.
Mhm.
So sometimes that's the way we satisfy a lead abatement order because bare wood, even if it's leaded bare wood, is not a hazard by hazard standards because it's not peeling, flaking, so forth,
Mhm.
unless it's chewable. Or friction or impact. But
The
you're
top
still
moldings
leaving
will,
lead, you're still leaving lead in the wood. And if you were later to come along and sand that wood, you've created a lead hazard back into your property again.
no, I'm painting. I mean, just because it, you know, no.
You just have to ask them. Typically they'll give a property owner permission to use encapsulant paint or even latex paint once the hazard's gone.
What I'm confused about and trying to focus in on, there appears to be different standards with DHHS and with you guys, because you're saying that when you assess it as to what you would give in a grant, you will base it on essentially what's most economical, which I don't disagree with.
Necessarily. I mean,
Yeah,
we can't waste money. Up to a
right.
certain point, we have flexibility, and I would always remove and replace before I would encapsulate. I mean, I would write that work scope that way, as long as we have money enough, because I know that encapsulating is just kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
That's the truth. But if we don't have money for anything else, it's a whole lot better than nothing. So we do the best we can, you know?
The other question, I always have questions. So if anybody's mad at me, I always have questions. The unit that one of the units is what I call the barn unit at the end, and that was all redone in the year 2000s, and the whole inside, as I see it, probably does not have any lead. And the question would be that that tenant is the least happy so far about revealing any income. It's the more expensive apartment. It's a very nice apartment. Um, so if they didn't participate, is it possible to have the assistance for the other apartments and have that one excluded?
No. Once we touch a property, we have
Okay.
to do the entire property. However, there is in HEP 1600, and Nick could probably tell me the actual number. There is a piece of the law that says that the tenant cannot get in the way of abatement work. In other words, you can evict them for keeping you from getting abatement work done. I don't know what the actual RSA is, but I know there is one. So if you wanted to go that route, you certainly could. But
I
we
sort of
with a hybrid,
suggested that.
we couldn't ignore it.
Okay. So, okay. Now, if it's inspected and there's nothing that needs to be done there for lead, you can still get money for the other stuff?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we have to be doing lead in the property in order to get Healthy Homes money for the property. So we would have to have some lead somewhere, but it could be the exterior, the common areas, the hallways.
I mean, there's lead everywhere except that apartment, probably, because that, at least the inside of that apartment, was all done in the 2000s, and as far as I can tell, I don't see any surfaces that uh that
That have
you know.
lead. Yeah. Well, we can't tell by looking. I can't either. You know, I was a lead inspector for a while and I used to mess up all the time. I'd be looking at a wall and I'd say, I bet you that's lead. And I'd hit it with the XRF and it wasn't, you know. So it's very hard to tell. But we certainly will do the lead inspection and find out for sure for you. And even if there's no lead inside that unit, as long as we can tie lead to it somewhere, even on the
On
outside.
the outside, yeah,
Right.
yeah.
And we can do
And
work.
on the back side, the back outside, there is for sure.
Yeah. Sounds like we can help.
Okay, that was just
Kate,
worried about.
Yeah.
When do you think you will have a Spanish class, a Spanish speaking class for, because we have a couple of Spanish workers that we're looking to get them lead certified.
Yeah,
Um,
I'm going to need a minimum probably of 6.
okay,
I have found a trainer who can teach the class in Spanish. Um,
okay,
yeah, so we can do that, but I have to, I have to have enough students to pay him.
okay.
Do you think that we might have more than a couple, or you don't know yet?
Yeah, there's going to be more than a couple, yes.
Great. Well,
Yeah,
yeah, let's talk. We'll figure it out.
okay,
I think as long as we can get 6, and also we can coordinate with the Nashua program. This is someone I met through the Nashua program, actually.
okay,
So we can coordinate with them. Maybe they can provide a few and we can provide a few and we'll make that happen. You need abatement,
perfect.
not RRP, right?
I'm sorry,
Abatement or RRP?
abatement.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Okay. Yep. I think we can do it.
okay, great.
Let's make it happen as soon as we can. One of the things that we promised to do in our application was to offer materials in Spanish because we found a 23% or 25% of the population in Sullivan County speaks Spanish. So
Perfect.
yeah.
Great.
Okay, I can also add into that. On the class that was December 11th, I had a student that was asking for something similar. So you might reach out to her.
Oh,
Her
okay.
name was Nicole. Um, Forget the last name, but I think she's the only Nicole in the class, December
December
11th.
11th, you think? Tiffany, can you?
What? And she may have some other students that want Spanish, or I think she might have been looking for Portuguese, but it's close enough of a connection that she might have some people that would be interested in that as well.
I also think once we advertise it, we put a newsletter out, we put it on Facebook, I think we'll get enough people. So yeah,
Perfect.
thank you for asking. We
Mhm.
definitely should do that. I would hope that we will have bid walks in January. We have, as of last night, things keep changing. As of last night, we have 31 units on the waiting list.
Wow.
Yeah, it's wild. We're like
Yeah,
a third of the way through
yeah.
our grant already, and we
Is
have.
that, am I one of them or
You
do I?
are.
Yeah.
No, I
okay,
think you are. I think so.
Is-
What's your address?
55 Park Street.
I have to look. But if you're not, it's because we're missing, I'm writing it down. If we're not, it's because we're missing data.
Yeah, I'm sure we're missing data because of they're too new. The tenants don't have their stuff in yet for sure. And I need
Oh,
a few things.
yeah.
But
So
basically, I know it's the tenants.
yeah, we're trying all of the many of the 31 units are missing a piece of data here, a piece of data there. As soon as we have a couple of units with all the application completed, we'll have a walkthrough. I'm hoping first 2 weeks of January, but we'll see.
Okay.
Time.
Now, what if our tenants they just won't fill out the applications? I mean, what can we do to
You have either you can evict them. That I didn't say
okay,
that, but you can. The law
okay.
allows that. I hate to
Because I'm
enforce
thinking
that.
our Factory Street people are going to be tough. And
So
that's one of the ones.
yeah. So let me sort of talk through that for a second because we go through this a lot.
Mhm.
So what happens is I call them, right? So you sometimes you and I can have a talk ahead of time and you can say these people are not going to talk to me and I'll say, okay, well, let me try. Sometimes a different person, you just never know.
Right.
Or you can try first. And if you don't have success, then I can try, right? So my
Okay.
first call or text will be, and you'll have to tell me some things about them. What's the best way to reach them?
Right.
My first
Mhm.
call or text will be something like, hi, my name is Kate. I'm working with Sullivan County. Got to get some information. I'm sure your landlord told you we really need this. They,
Okay.
they usually ignore that. So then the next thing is something like, listen, my name's Kate Kirkwood. I don't work for the city. I don't work for the county. I'm an independent contractor. I don't have to share anything you tell me. You can ask me any question you want. I bet you're wondering why we're asking for your income, right? Let's have a conversation. Sometimes that's enough. They'll call me up
Okay.
and they'll say, oh yeah, I have been wondering. Let's talk.
Mhm.
Other times it'll be, listen, I hate to tell you this, but your landlord can evict you for not cooperating. So, I mean, I know
Okay.
you don't want to fight with your landlord, but I just want you to know. And then my last resort is usually, can I come over to your house and help you fill out this application? By the way, I know how valuable your time is. I know that I'm asking you, busy mom, to take some time. If I could give you a $50 Visa gift card, would that help?
Oh my gosh.
Honestly. Oh
I
yeah.
have a couple tenants that would definitely take that.
Well, that's it, and that's the last resort, and that's what we do, and it gets charged to our outreach and education budget. And I've done it. I've done it a few times. So, it's you have to we go where we need to go, right? And the interesting thing about that is if it's a 3-family building, once I do that with one tenant, the other 2 tenants call me. I don't have to call them anymore.
Nice.
Yeah, I heard you gave Sally $50. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I don't broadcast that, you now know a secret because you were here. But I will try that before we'll just dump them, because I don't want you to have to evict them. I mean, that's silly.
Right.
And we do have, I mean, I can't give them hundreds or anything, but it's amazing how much a $50 gas card or Walmart card or something.
Oh yeah. It can go far for people. Yeah. For some people. Yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I've had people like really grateful, So, yeah. So those are all my tricks. Now you know all my tricks.
Okay.
And you feel free to try them yourself. You don't have
Okay.
to wait for me. Sometimes it helps to have another person, but sometimes you have a relationship with them. You go give them $50, You can
Right.
give them cash. I can't do that because I can't get reimbursed for cash, but I can
Right.
buy a gift card and submit a receipt. So I can do that. But anyway, yeah, that's how it goes. And it was actually, I learned that trick from New Hampshire Housing. Yeah.
Nice. Okay.
Okay. Anything else? Any other questions? Is this helpful?
Are the
Uh-oh.
applications taken like in priority of when we get all our pieces together and they're first, so to speak?
Yeah, basically. I mean, if we had 6 of them all at once, I would go for the high priority. Thanks, Sonia. I'd go for the higher priority, kid with higher level. But if they don't all come in at once, whoever comes in first is going to get the first. Yeah, going to get the first inspection. And we've got our new inspector chomping at the bit, ready to go. He said he could start January 1st, maybe sooner. So whenever the applications are in. Anything else?
Nope. Just thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Get your
Thanks.
application in.
It was a great meeting, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Here.